The morning sun glared through the windshield, reflecting off my white gown as we drove towards the wedding venue. Daniel and I had been planning this day for months, and the excitement bubbled inside me. I, Leah, a 32-year-old nurse, was about to marry the man I thought was my soulmate. "Leah, isn't it beautiful today? Perfect for our wedding," Daniel said, his voice calm and reassuring. I smiled, nodding in agreement, feeling the weight of my engagement ring against my finger. Suddenly, Daniel's eyes fixed on something outside the car. His expression changed from serene to intense in a matter of seconds. "That's Rachel," he muttered under his breath. Rachel, his ex-girlfriend, was walking along the sidewalk, struggling with a heavy bag. "What?" I asked, confused. "Why does that matter?" Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he slammed on the brakes, jolting me forward. "Leah, get out," he said abruptly. I was taken aback. "What? Why? I need to help her. She's struggling. Just get out now." His tone was sharp, brooking no argument. "But, Daniel, it's our wedding day. Can't we just call someone to help her?" "No time. Just get out." Daniel's voice rose, his eyes not leaving Rachel. I felt a mix of anger, confusion, and disbelief. Slowly, I unbuckled my seatbelt and stepped out of the car. The door slammed shut behind me, and Daniel drove off, leaving me standing there in my wedding dress, out, alone and bewildered. Tears welled up in my eyes. This was not how I imagined my wedding day. The sight of Daniel's car disappearing around the corner, chasing after his past, shattered something inside me. I felt a cold, sinking feeling in my stomach. Had I misjudged the man I was about to marry? Standing on the sidewalk, I realized I had no phone, no wallet, nothing. I was completely stranded. The wedding venue was a 15-minute drive away. I had no choice but to start walking. As I trudged along the road, my mind raced. How had things come to this? Daniel, the charming, attentive man I had fallen in love with, had just abandoned me on our wedding day for his ex-girlfriend. The man who had once listened to my every worry, who had comforted me after long shifts at the hospital, now seemed like a stranger. Every step felt heavier than the last. My mind kept replaying the moment Daniel told me to get out of the car. It didn't make sense. Why would he do this? Was there something between him and Rachel that I didn't know about? By the time I reached the venue, my feet ached and my heart felt even worse. I was a bride without a groom, walking into what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, now clouded with doubt and betrayal. I entered the venue, trying to compose myself. The staff rushed towards me, concern etched on their faces. "Miss Leah, are you okay? Where's Mr. Daniel?" Taking a deep breath, I replied, "I don't know. He left me on the way here." My voice cracked as I spoke. Just then I saw Daniel walking towards me, his face a mixture of guilt and confusion. "Leah, I'm so sorry. I just thought—" "Thought what, Daniel?" I interrupted, my voice cold. "That leaving your bride on the sidewalk on our wedding day was a good idea?" Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The realization of what he had done was finally dawning on him. The Daniel I knew, the one who was always so sure of himself, now looked lost and defeated. But it was too late. The damage was done. I turned away from him, my heart heavy with a decision I never thought I'd have to make. In the sanctuary of my small dressing room, the weight of the veil felt like a shroud of disillusionment. The reflection in the mirror showed a bride, yet the sparkle in her eyes had dimmed. The betrayal of the morning's events gnawed at me, unraveling memories of how Daniel and I had come to this fractured moment. Our story began 2 years ago, under much simpler circumstances. I was introduced to Daniel at a small gathering by mutual friends. He was charming, his laughter infectious, and his interest in my nursing career genuine, or so I had thought. As our relationship progressed, so did the subtleties of Daniel's control. Compliments about my dedication to nursing soon turned into thinly veiled comments about the time it took away from him. "I just miss you, that's all," he'd say, but the implication was clear. His needs should come first. I remembered the evening he first showed his disdain for my job. We were having dinner, and I was excitedly sharing a breakthrough with a patient. Instead of sharing my enthusiasm, he coldly remarked, "Isn't that a bit too much effort for someone who's not even family? You should focus more on what's at home." Those words stung, but I brushed them off, attributing them to stress from his own work. I convinced myself that Daniel's increasingly possessive behavior was just his way of showing love. But as I sat in my wedding dress, abandoned on our wedding day, those excuses crumbled. The turning point came 6 months before our wedding. During a heated argument about our future, Daniel had blurted out, "Maybe you should just quit your job after we're married. Wouldn't you prefer to be a good wife and take care of our home?" I was aghast. "Quit my job? But I love nursing. It's not just a job for me, it's a calling." Daniel scoffed. "A calling? Come on, Leah. It's not like you're saving the world. A wife's place is at home, supporting her husband." That night, I lay awake, wrestling with doubts and Daniel's antiquated views. However, my love for him, blinded by the hope that love could conquer all, led me to dismiss these red flags. The morning of our wedding, those ignored warnings came back to haunt me. As I stood alone in the dressing room, the reality of who Daniel truly was became painfully clear. The man who had vowed to love and protect me had left me on the side of the road for another woman. A knock on the door pulled me from my thoughts. It was my best friend, Sarah. Her eyes were full of concern. "Leah, are you okay? What happened?" I recounted the morning's events, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah listened, her expression turning from shock to anger. "That's unforgivable, Leah. You deserve so much better than him," Sarah said, her voice firm. "But I love him," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "Love doesn't leave you stranded on the road on your wedding day," Sarah retorted. "You need to think about what's best for you, not him." Her words echoed in my mind as I looked at my reflection again. The bride in the mirror was strong, independent, and deserved respect. Respect that Daniel had failed to give. In that moment, a resolve began to form within me. Daniel's actions today were a clear sign. I couldn't marry a man who saw me as less than an equal, as nothing more than an accessory to his life. Emerging from the dressing room, I found Daniel pacing anxiously in the hallway. He looked up, his face a mask of regret. "Leah, I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. Please, can we just forget this happened and move on?" Forgetting was not an option. I squared my shoulders, meeting his gaze with newfound determination. "No, Daniel, we can't just move on. What you did today, it opened my eyes. I can't marry someone who doesn't respect me or my passions." Daniel's face fell, a mix of shock and disbelief washing over him. "But Leah, I love you." "This was just a mistake." "A mistake that showed your true colors," I said, my voice steady. "I deserve someone who supports me, not someone who leaves me on the side of the road for an ex." Turning away from him, I left Daniel standing there, his pleas fading behind me. The decision was painful, but necessary. I would not be a bride today, but I would walk out of this venue with my head held high, ready to face a future where I was valued and respected. The days following the broken wedding were a whirlwind of emotions and hard decisions. It was during a small, tense gathering at my home, with both our families present, that the true extent of Daniel's character began to unravel further. As we sat around the living room, the air was thick with unspoken words and disappointment. My mother, always my pillar of strength, broke the silence. "Leah, we support whatever decision you make, but are you sure you want to end things this way?" Before I could respond, Daniel, who had been quietly brooding, spoke up. "Leah's just overreacting. We can sort this out. It was just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I echoed, my voice laced with incredulity. "You left me on the side of the road on our wedding day, Daniel." Daniel's mother, a stern woman who had always been cordial to me, turned to her son with a frown. "Daniel, that was inexcusable. You need to make amends." Daniel rolled his eyes, a dismissive gesture that sent a wave of anger through me. "I already said I was sorry. What more do you want?" I felt my hands clench into fists. His lack of remorse and understanding was infuriating. "Sorry doesn't just erase what you did, Daniel. It's not just about today, it's about everything leading up to it." My father, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. "Leah, we just want you to be happy and respected. If Daniel can't give you that, then maybe it's best to part ways." Daniel scoffed, his arrogance on full display. "Oh, please. This is all just being blown out of proportion. Leah knows I'm the best she'll ever have. She's not going to leave me." His words struck a nerve, and I felt a surge of defiance rise within me. "The best I'll ever have? Daniel, you've done nothing but belittle my career and my choices. You don't respect me as your partner." Daniel's father, a quiet man, finally interjected. Son, you need to realize the gravity of your actions. You can't treat Leah, or any woman, like this. But Daniel was unrepentant. I don't see why everyone's making such a big deal out of this. Leah, you're just too sensitive. You should be grateful that I'm willing to overlook this and still marry you. The room fell silent, the audacity of his words hanging in the air like a toxic cloud. My mother's gaze hardened. Leah is not the one who should be grateful, Daniel. She's a strong, independent woman who deserves someone who truly values her. It was then that I realized the full extent of Daniel's narcissism and disrespect. He saw me not as a partner, but as a possession, something to control and belittle. Daniel, this isn't just about today, it's about how you've treated me all along, I said firmly. I don't need someone who sees me as less than they are. I need a partner who respects and supports me. Daniel's face contorted with anger. Fine. If that's what you want, then we're done. But don't come crawling back to me when you realize your mistake. I looked at him, the man I had once loved, and felt nothing but disappointment and resolve. There's no mistake here, Daniel. The only mistake was thinking you could change. As he stormed out of the room, his family in tow, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. It was over. The wedding, the relationship, all of it. I had made my choice, and though the road ahead was uncertain, I knew it was the right one. In the aftermath of our failed wedding and the tumultuous confrontation with our families, I expected Daniel to retreat, to maybe even show a hint of remorse. Instead, he doubled down, his true nature unraveling in the most public and humiliating way. The day that should have been our wedding turned into a spectacle that I could never have anticipated. I had decided to go through with the reception, not as a celebration of marriage, but as a gathering of friends and family to thank them for their support. But Daniel had other plans. As I mingled with the guests, trying to maintain a semblance of composure, Daniel burst into the venue. His arrival was like a storm, chaotic and unsettling. His eyes, once warm, now bore into me with a strange mix of anger and desperation. Leah, we need to talk, now, he demanded, grabbing my arm with a force that made me wince. I pulled away, my voice steady despite my racing heart. There's nothing left to talk about, Daniel. But he was relentless. You can't just end things like this. We're meant to be together. His words drew the attention of the guests, their murmurs growing louder. I could feel their eyes on us, a mix of pity and curiosity. Daniel, you left me on our wedding day. You humiliated me. There's no coming back from that, I said, my voice rising. He scoffed. Oh, come on, Leah. You're overreacting. You know I only did that because I care about you. I wanted to make sure Rachel was okay. The mention of Rachel's name sparked whispers among the guests. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. You care about me? I countered. Is that why you compared me to Rachel, belittled my career, and demanded I quit my job? Daniel's face twisted into a sneer. You're just too sensitive. You need to learn your place, Leah. My place. Those words echoed in my mind, fueling a fire I hadn't known I possessed. My place is not with someone who doesn't respect me, I retorted. I don't need you, Daniel. I never did. His expression shifted from arrogance to something uglier, a mix of rage and wounded pride. Fine. But you'll regret this, Leah. You'll never find someone like me. I looked at him, seeing him for the petty, insecure man he was. That's the point, Daniel. I don't want someone like you. I deserve better. With that, I turned my back to him, leaving him standing in the middle of the room, his anger palpable. The guests parted for me, their expressions a mix of respect and sympathy. As I walked away, I heard Daniel's voice, shrill and desperate, calling after me. But I didn't look back. I had closed that chapter of my life, ready to start anew, free from his toxic presence. That day, I not only walked away from a broken wedding, but also from a relationship that had been suffocating me. I walked away with my head held high, my dignity intact, and a heart ready to heal and find true respect and love. In the weeks following the debacle of what should have been my wedding day, I found solace in routine, immersing myself in work and the comfort of friends and family. However, Daniel was not content to fade into the background of my newfound tranquility. It began with unexpected, unnerving encounters. I would often find Daniel waiting outside my workplace, his presence a stark reminder of the control he once wielded over my life. Each time, I firmly told him to leave, but my words seemed to fuel his determination. One evening, as I left the hospital, Daniel confronted me again. His usual arrogance was replaced by a desperation that bordered on mania. "Leah, you can't do this to me. We're meant to be together," he pleaded, blocking my path. I stopped, my patience wearing thin. "Daniel, it's over. You need to accept that and move on." He shook his head, his eyes wild. "No, I won't let you ruin this. We were perfect together. You're just confused." His insistence was unsettling, and I took a step back. "I'm not confused, Daniel. I'm clearer now than I've ever been. We're done." As I tried to move past him, Daniel grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "You're not going anywhere. You're mine, Leah." That was the last straw. I pulled away forcefully, my voice loud and clear. "I am not your property, Daniel. I never was. Let go of me now, or I'll call the police." The threat seemed to penetrate his delusion, and he released me, his expression one of shock and anger. "You'll regret this, Leah. You'll see." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked away, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. I wouldn't be intimidated or swayed by his threats. True to my word, I reported Daniel's behavior to the police. They took my statement and assured me they would handle it. A sense of empowerment washed over me. I was no longer the woman who would tolerate Daniel's manipulation and disrespect. The next I heard of Daniel was through mutual acquaintances. His obsession with winning me back had cost him. His professional reputation had taken a hit, with colleagues and clients alike distancing themselves from his increasingly erratic behavior. But the real downfall came when news broke that Daniel had been fired from his job. His conduct, once excused as high-strung ambition, was now seen for what it was, a series of aggressive and unprofessional outbursts. As I heard these stories, a part of me felt vindicated. Daniel, who had always prided himself on his control and status, was now unraveling, his true nature exposed for all to see. It was a harsh lesson in humility and respect, one that he had brought upon himself. In a strange way, his downfall was the closure I needed. I had moved on, my life a testament to my resilience and strength. Daniel's descent was a stark reminder of the bullet I had dodged, a life of control and belittlement I had bravely walked away from. I no longer felt anger or sadness when I thought of Daniel. Instead, there was a sense of pity for a man who had lost himself in his own arrogance, and a profound gratitude for the freedom and respect I now embraced in my life. Months had passed since the day I decided to turn a page in my life, leaving behind the shadow of a relationship that was more a prison than a partnership. The echoes of Daniel's downfall served as a distant reminder of a path I had narrowly escaped. But life, as it always does, moved forward, and so did I. I found myself in a new town, a fresh start, where whispers of my past were just that, whispers, irrelevant and fading. My days were filled with the fulfilling challenges of my nursing career and the simple joys of newfound freedom. I had grown, not just in strength, but in my understanding of what I truly deserved. It was on a bright Saturday morning, in the quaint local market of my new town, that fate decided to bring a semblance of closure to my story. I was perusing fresh produce when a familiar figure caught my eye. Rachel, Daniel's ex-girlfriend, the unintentional catalyst of my wedding day disaster, was there, browsing not too far from me. Our eyes met, and there was a moment of mutual recognition, followed by a hesitant approach. "Leah," she said, her voice tinged with a mix of surprise and something akin to empathy. "Rachel," I replied, the name feeling strange yet familiar on my tongue. "I heard about, well, everything," she said, her gaze kind. "I'm so sorry for the part I played in it, however unintentional." I shook my head slightly, a small smile on my lips. "You have nothing to apologize for. If anything, you helped me see the truth." Rachel nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Daniel is a complex person. I've had my fair share of troubles with him." I raised an eyebrow, curious despite myself. "Troubles?" She sighed, a weary look crossing her face. "After your wedding day, he wouldn't leave me alone. Kept insisting we were meant to be together. I had to get a restraining order." The news didn't surprise me, but it did bring a sense of finality. Daniel, in his obsession, had spiraled down a path of self-destruction. "I'm sorry you had to go through that." Rachel shrugged, a small, sad smile playing on her lips. "It's over now. He finally got the message, or at least I hope he did. I'm just trying to move on." "Moving on is the best we can do," I said, feeling a kinship with this woman I once saw as a rival. We chatted for a bit longer, exchanging stories of moving forward and the lessons learned from our encounters with Daniel. As we parted ways, I felt a sense of peace. Walking away from the market, I realized that this chance meeting was more than just a coincidence. It was a reminder of how far I had come, of the strength I had found in myself to overcome adversity and disrespect. My steps were light as I made my way home. The burden of the past finally lifted. I had survived, thrived even, and in doing so had found a deeper appreciation for my own worth. Daniel's chapter in my life was closed, a distant, fading memory. Ahead of me lay a path of my own making, filled with possibilities, and the promise of a future where respect and love were not just desired, but demanded. In that moment, I knew that the best revenge was not in the downfall of the one who wronged me, but in the life I would build, free from his shadow. A life where I was the author of my own story, strong, respected, and unapologetically me.
My dad yelled at me and said I wasn't important anymore. He didn't want me in our house ever again. My fan said John backed him up. I left home crying right after finishing high school. My name's Amy. Now I'm 36 years old and work as a farmer. It's been 18 years since I left home. I've spent more time living my own life than I did with my family, and that makes me feel emotional. We used to live in a city. My dad worked in an office and my mom stayed at home. We were a family of 4, including my older brother. My parents always favored my brother because he was the firstborn. He got better food and fancier presents. He'd brag about it and make me feel small. Sometimes I felt really lonely and wished for attention, but my parents never changed, so I stopped trying. The big change in my life happened during the summer of my second year in high school. My brother was busy studying for a tough college entrance exam, hoping to get into a really good university. His practice test scores were bad, so he was always stressed out and took it out on me whenever he could. My parents treated him like he was fragile, being super careful with him, while I got stuck with all the household chores. That left me no time to study, even though I was doing better in school than my brother. They wanted to bring my grades down to make him feel better. It didn't make any sense. Around that time, one of my teachers told me about a program where students could go experience life on a farm for a few days. We'd stay with a family who owned a farm, helped with harvesting vegetables, cooked together, and just lived like country folks for a bit. Despite my family troubles, I decided to join the program, but my dad said farming is only for people who can't get better jobs, and my mom laughed at me, saying, "Are you crazy? You want to do manual labor and get all dirty." But I didn't listen to them and used my own money to sign up. It was the first time I stood up to my parents, and it turned out to be a great decision for me. Despite really wanting love from my family, it was an amazing experience. Working outside in the fresh air of the countryside felt so good, and I finally felt the warmth of a real family. The oldest son in that family, John, was just a year older than me, the same age as my brother. But John was nothing like my brother. He was kind, strong, got along well with his parents, and treated me nicely too. John's parents were really gentle, and even though I was only there for 3 days, I cried a lot when it was time to leave. John's mom cried too, and she said, "You can come back anytime." I promised I would. They said they didn't use their phones much, so I started writing them letters regularly. Before long, John started writing back more often, and it turned into like a diary we shared, and we started dating. It was a pure, long-distance relationship without even a single kiss. After my brother didn't get into his first-choice university and ended up in a lower-ranked college, it was my turn to apply for college. But my parents wanted me to get a job instead of going to college. They said it was because girls didn't need education, but really, I think they didn't want me to go to a better college than my brother. Since my time on the farm, I dreamed of being a farmer. I could have become one without going to college, but John was in college, so I decided to go and study a new kind of farming. Even though my parents and brother tried to stop me, I worked hard every day towards my goal. But when I passed the entrance exam for university, my dad got really angry and said, "Are you a girl trying to go to a better college than your brother?" My mom said, "We don't have money to spend on you. Your brother needs it, so you should work and bring money home." My parents' hurtful words left me feeling alone and sad, and after a big fight, I decided to cut ties with them completely. John came to get me from home, and his parents, who were now my in-laws, helped pay for my college. I ended up going to college, and 4 years later I married John. I didn't speak to my parents or brother during college, but when my in-laws said we should at least tell them about the wedding, we went to my childhood home for the first time in 4 years. It was summer after graduation and a busy time for planting, so we couldn't visit earlier. We all had tanned faces from working outside, but my parents and brother made fun of us. My mom asked, "How old are you now? You must be poor to work outside and get so dark." I felt so embarrassed. "Please stop, Mom," I said quietly, but she didn't listen. My brother smirked and said, "Smart people like me make money with our brains. If you're stuck doing manual labor, it means you're not very smart." I felt sick, and my in-laws' smiles disappeared. My husband spoke up, saying, "We're proud to be farmers and we work hard." My dad laughed in a mean way and told me, "From now on, you're a stranger to us. You're marrying a farmer who works hard for a living. We're going to pretend you don't exist. Don't come to us for money. We don't want to see you anymore." At 18, I already felt like I didn't belong, so his words didn't surprise me, but it still hurt, especially with my in-laws and John looking at me with sympathy. I cried quietly on the way home, deciding to forget about my family. Time passed quickly, and 18 years went by. The hurt started to fade. I had 2 kids and a busy but happy life. I almost forgot about my parents and brother until a cousin told me my brother was getting married. We were close and kept in touch even after I got married. I once sent them rice from our farm, and they liked it, so we stayed in touch and talked on the phone once a month. My cousin mentioned we could catch up at the wedding. My cousin said, but I hadn't heard anything about the wedding from my parents or brother. Since we're not talking, I wouldn't know. I heard they're building a new house. I wonder if it's done. It seemed both my parents and brother planned to move after the wedding. My cousin knew about the problems between my parents and me, but they probably assumed I'd still show up at important family events. After the call with my cousin, I impulsively called my mom's cell phone, but all I got was a message saying, "This number is no longer in use." I tried calling my father next, but got the same automated message again. Did they change their numbers? I didn't have my brother's number, so I couldn't call him. With shaky hands, I dialed the landline for our family home, and someone picked up. "Hello, it was my brother. It's Amy. I heard you're getting married and moving." I started to congratulate him, but he interrupted me. "You don't need to do anything. You're a farmer, a stranger to me. Don't call me," he yelled before hanging up. I tried calling him back, but I was already blocked. It was so harsh. No matter how much he disliked me, we were still a family. It hurt to be rejected like that. Seeing how upset I was, my husband asked gently, "What's wrong? What happened?" I couldn't hold back my tears as I told him about the conversation. Both my husband and my in-laws were furious, as if it had happened to them. "Your home is here, Amy. Your family to us." My mother-in-law comforted me. Her words brought tears to my eyes. I wish she was my real mom. She cared about me more than my own mother did, I thought. My father-in-law also reassured me, saying, "You're happy now. That's what matters. Don't let it hurt you." My husband added, "Let's learn from their mistakes and make sure we're different." Even our kids, unaware of the situation, hugged me tightly. "Thank you, everyone," I said, feeling the warmth in my heart. I realized how happy I was even without the support of my biological family. But things changed dramatically when my business was featured on national TV. My in-laws were big grain farmers in the American Midwest. They grew lots of fruits and veggies, but some didn't meet standards. I studied food business in college and figured out how to sell the produce that wasn't perfect. I started an online business selling jams, juices, and sauces made from those fruits and veggies. With support from the local farmers union, my business became a hit. Moms loved our safe, homegrown food, and seniors enjoyed the homemade pickles. I hired young women who, like me, married into farming families, and unemployed young people. The business grew to $5 million. Our success story got covered on TV. After the TV show aired, we were bombarded with calls from all sorts of people. We got orders, questions, offers for deals, and requests for interviews. Both the company phone and my personal cell phone wouldn't stop ringing. So when I got a call from an unknown number, I answered without thinking. To my surprise, it was my brother. I figured he must have seen the TV feature and heard about my success. But without much of a hello, he said, "I'm thinking of starting a business. Can you lend me some money?" "Excuse me, absolutely not," I replied firmly, feeling even more resolute. I coldly rejected his request and hung up. But he called again. "Stop arguing and give me the money. If a woman like you can start a business and make money, I'm sure I can do it too," he shouted relentlessly. "That's not how someone asking for a loan should act," I responded, baffled by his confidence. It was ironic because he was the one who had called me a stranger, just a simple farmer. Ignoring his request, I asked something that had been bothering me, by the way, who decided not to tell me about the move. Obviously it was me, my wife. "She's a city girl, you know," he replied. "The moment I mentioned you, she suggested we cut ties. So that was the reason I didn't want to hear more, so I hung up and blocked his number." It seemed like my brother's wife, whom I'd never met, had a similar attitude to my brother and parents. Realizing that my brother had seen me on TV probably meant my parents had too. A few hours later, I received another call from an unknown number. But it turned out to be my father. "Why are you in charge? Did you take a man's job?" he demanded. Well, both John and my father-in-law are deeply involved in the farming business, so it's only natural. In fact, large-scale consolidation has become advantageous for somewhat larger farms. My father-in-law is the president of the local agricultural association, and John has incorporated his share as an in-law and is now the president of that corporation, I explained. Perhaps my explanation convinced him because then he asked, "Why haven't you been in touch?" Feeling stunned, I replied, "You're the one who disowned me. I'm ending this conversation now," and I hung up and blocked his number. A few minutes later, my mother called. "Why won't you lend money to your brother? You're making $500 million a year, aren't you? Send money home. We're your real family. Have you forgotten all we've done for you, raising you up? Give us at least $300 million or at least $250 million, my mother demanded aggressively. Even though the business earns $500 million, that's the total revenue after paying for expenses and employee salaries. I barely have anything left over. I exaggerated a bit, and my mother instantly shot back, "You're lying. That can't be true," feeling increasingly frustrated. I couldn't believe my mother's persistent demands for money. I wondered if she had any shame. "I'm not going to send you any money, whether I have it or not. We're strangers," I told her firmly before hanging up and blocking her number. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was mistaken. My parents, my brother, and his wife, whom I never met before, suddenly showed up uninvited at my in-laws' house. "Hey, Amy, guess what? I'm taking back the disowment," my father announced. I was shocked at their desperation for money. My mother-in-law couldn't believe what was happening. Even my father-in-law and her were clearly uncomfortable. glaring at my parents in silence. The employees around us had gathered, looking shocked at my parents. My brother seemed to realize he wasn't welcome either. We're the real family, connected by blood. We deserve a share of your earnings too, he insisted. The woman with him, presumably his wife, nodded along in agreement. I was livid. No, that's not how it works. Even though we share blood, there's been no emotional connection. You treated me like a stranger and abandoned me, I said, feeling the old wounds of being rejected by my biological family reopening. Tears threatened to spill again. Just then, John came and stood by my side. Amy is part of our family now. Even if you haven't claimed her, we're perfectly happy without you. Please leave, he said firmly, defending me. The employees joined in, criticizing my parents together. We're with Amy. How dare you? They exclaimed in unison. As I thought, this is my true family. I felt a deep sense of happiness, but my brother's anger was growing. Shut up, you country bumpkins. You're all uneducated trash, he raged. But John calmly responded, actually, both my father and I are Ivy League graduates, and Amy graduated from a prestigious agricultural university, revealing our educational background. What? With degrees from top universities, why are you farming? My brother exclaimed in disbelief. Maybe for my brother, graduating from a lower-rank university was his only source of pride, and he likely didn't anticipate being outmatched in terms of education, I thought. Amy and John remained composed as he stated, farming is an honorable profession. We can apply what we've learned in college to it. I couldn't contain my laughter at the absurdity of it all. Brother, you've been bested by John in every way, I chuckled, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. Realizing I had been too fearful of my brother and parents, I spoke up firmly. Let me make this clear one last time. We are strangers now. Pausing briefly, I adopted a polite tone. Therefore, I cannot lend or give money to strangers. Please leave. If you cause trouble or act violently, I will call the police and take legal action. I asserted our separation unequivocally. My in-laws and husband moved closer to me, ready to shield me from any harm my parents and brother might try to inflict. I was deeply touched, feeling genuinely cared for. The employees also joined in, shouting at my parents, "Get out of here. Go home." My parents, brother, and sister-in-law left with resentment in their eyes, unable to argue further and only able to retreat. Later, I learned that my cousin, brother, and parents tried to get rich quickly by starting a business with borrowed money instead of asking me. But their arrogance led to a major failure. Now they're on the brink of bankruptcy. But I've cut ties with them, and I have no intention of getting involved anymore. As for me, my work is thriving, and I'm surrounded by my true family, supportive in-laws, a loving husband, and wonderful children. I'll cherish each day, enjoying the happiness of life.
The lady who married my eldest son said something mean to me. She said I didn't belong here because I only finished middle school and I'm living off a pension. She made me really angry, but before I could respond, my second son's wife interrupted, looking worried. She said something about a story my eldest son's wife used to make fun of me, but now she's in a tough spot herself. My name's Sally, and I'm 62 years old. I've lived a simple life since finishing middle school. I worked hard to raise my kids after my husband died 5 years ago. I've managed to stay healthy with support from others. I'm still doing some work my husband used to do, and though there are some issues, overall I'm content. But something's been bothering me. "Hey there, I've got a delivery for you," I say to the delivery person at my door. They handed me a single sealed envelope and a beautiful bouquet of flowers. The card on the flowers read, "Happy Birthday," signed by my second son Tyler. It was a surprise because I'd never received anything like this before. Back when Tyler was single, his now wife Ariana probably took care of such things. Tyler's a laid-back guy, while Ariana is more organized and thoughtful. They live about an hour away, but they visit occasionally to check in and invite me on trips with them. I called Ariana to thank her, and she sounded happy, saying, "Happy birthday. I heard you like flowers. Take care, and I can't wait to see you again." Ariana's such a great wife, almost too good for Tyler. But then there's the other letter from my eldest son, Tom. When I opened it, I found a birthday card. Tom, who got married before Tyler, isn't the type to do something like this on his own, so it must have been his wife, Mary, who sent it. Mary has always been a big worry for me. She brags about being highly educated and working for a big company. She's got a strong personality and can be pretty snobby. She judges people based on their education and job, and if she thinks someone's beneath her, she'll make fun of them. Since I only finished junior high school and have been working all my life, she looks down on me. I knew she didn't respect me from the start, but over time she's become even more arrogant. She'd show up at my house unannounced and expect me to cook for her, saying she was too tired from work. Sometimes she even asked me for money without telling my son Tom, who's also well off. Tom is like a husband to me, gentle and kind, so I tolerate Mary because she married him. But it hurts. I don't feel good about it. Still, she wished me a happy birthday, so I felt like I should at least thank her. That's why I decided to give her a call. I called Mary, and she sounded tired, saying she needed to keep it short because of work. I thanked her for the birthday card she sent me. She quickly acknowledged it, and then reminded me about an upcoming family dinner, telling me to dress nicely so she wouldn't be embarrassed. I agreed and said goodbye. She didn't even say congratulations, but that's just how Mary is, I thought to myself, feeling a bit disappointed. I wondered if there was anything I could do about the situation. A few weeks later, I had the chance to attend a dinner party with my relatives. It was for my niece's wedding. She's always been dear to me since she was little. She's a cousin of my sons Tom and Tyler. Since she wasn't having a big wedding, they decided to throw a dinner party to introduce her new husband to the family. Tom, Mary, Tyler, Ariana, and I were all invited. As we walked through the courtyard where the party was being held, I commented on the nice weather and how lovely my niece looked in her kimono. "You look great in your kimono, and it fits perfectly in this courtyard," I told her. "Well, it's a proper place today, and I haven't been here in a long time," she replied. "I wish I had worn a kimono too. This restaurant is really nice and luxurious," I remarked. "Oh, come on, I can't afford to buy you an expensive kimono for a place like this," my niece replied. "I know, I'm just saying," I said with a smile. As we chatted, my eldest son and his wife arrived late. "Hello, wow, you're dressed up nicely," I greeted them. "Hey, you don't have to say it like that." My son Tom tried to intervene, but Mary seemed annoyed. "It's almost time to go in," I said, leading everyone inside the restaurant. Around 30 relatives had gathered, and many of them came to greet me. "She's very well liked, isn't she?" Someone whispered. "Is it out of pity after all?" Mary muttered nearby. I ignored her and took my seat. My niece and her partner greeted everyone, and after a toast, the dinner party began. I had expected the restaurant to be in a rural area, but the food was impressive. They even had a good selection of sake. "It's no wonder they were featured in the Tokyo magazine," Mary remarked, enjoying her meal and drinking a lot of sake. The dinner proceeded peacefully, celebrating my niece's marriage. I was relieved to see that her partner seemed like a good person. "Incidentally, I heard you graduated from the University of K and worked for a famous bank," one of the relatives mentioned. Yes, that's correct. I'm grateful to my parents for supporting my education, my niece's partner replied nervously. That's good, university. Ah? Well, I graduated from W University myself. I'm a CEO at a big company, Mary chimed in, even though nobody asked. She seemed eager to show off her education and job. Tom tried to stop her, but Mary kept going. In today's world, your education really matters, don't you think? She said. No, I don't agree. There are plenty of respectable people regardless of their education, my niece's partner replied firmly. But Mary didn't stop. I believe those who went to K University would understand that there are things only educated people can grasp. People without education are, let's say, at a lower level, right, Sally? She suddenly turned to me. But I already knew where this was going. I'm not sure, Mary. Maybe you've had a bit too much to drink. Why don't you step outside for some fresh air? I responded calmly, but it seemed to annoy her. What's wrong, Mary? You're being a bit harsh, I said. Did you just tell me to leave even though I have a college degree and you only finished junior high? She snapped back. I don't get it. What's your problem? Tom tried to intervene, but I signaled him to stay quiet. It was time to address this once and for all, I thought. Mary, if you have something to say, say it. I encouraged her, though I already knew what was coming. She chuckled and then began, Let me be frank. If I were you, I'd be too ashamed to show my face in front of the family. You only finished middle school and have no qualifications. Everyone, including my niece and her partner, was watching us closely. I haven't seen you doing much since your husband passed away. You're unemployed at 62, nowhere near retirement age. Where I work, people are dedicated, and I'm the main breadwinner, she continued, seeming to relish in it. You didn't even go to high school, let alone a good one. You're in this situation because you lack qualifications. Isn't that pathetic? I definitely wouldn't want to end up like you, Aunt, though I don't have to worry since I work for a big company, she added, her words causing even the waitstaff to pause and listen. Then she dropped a bombshell. Someone like you who only finished middle school doesn't belong here. It's embarrassing. You're just a poor person living off a pension. I don't want anything to do with you, so why don't you leave? Mary's words pushed me over the edge. I had been trying to tolerate her arrogance, but I couldn't hold back my anger anymore. My nose twitched, and I fought back tears. I wanted to tell her to just shut up and listen, but before I could, Ariana, looking pale, interjected. Mary seemed confused as Ariana spoke. The relatives had various reactions. Some were bitter, some angry, some looked down on Mary, and Tom looked downcast. What's going on? Mary demanded. Ariana, trembling, explained, Sally owns this restaurant. There was a moment of silence. Then Mary laughed dismissively. Don't be ridiculous. What are you talking about? She scoffed. The manager and employees rushed to me. Boss, are you okay? She's amazing. She's helped me so much. Do you know what you're saying? The manager yelled at Mary. She turned to Tom, bewildered. Tom, what's happening? Wait, what? They're saying is true, Mary, Tom exclaimed. Yeah, they're right. Dad and Mom started this restaurant, and Mom took over after Dad passed away, but she wasn't able to manage it alone. So now she lets someone else run it under her name. She really is the owner, Tom explained. Why didn't you tell me this before? If I knew, I wouldn't have said those things about the restaurant or the property. I wanted to leave my mom alone, especially since she was depressed after Dad died. And when you found out about her education, you looked down on her and lost interest, Mary admitted. What? How could someone who only finished junior high run such a fancy restaurant? The business must be failing, and the house is old. They really are poor, Tyler chimed in, addressing Mary's ongoing complaints. Actually, he continued, Mom likes to keep things simple, and the house is full of memories of Dad. She owns a condo near the station and other properties she and Dad bought together. Honestly, I think she earns more than you do. What the? This is ridiculous. You're just a middle school graduate. Stop talking, Mary retorted angrily. Suddenly, a calm voice broke through the tension. It was a man who looked around my age, dressed sharply in a suit. What's going on here? He asked calmly. Who are you to butt in? Mary snapped. I'm the executive director, he revealed. Mary's face turned pale. No, it can't be, she whispered. I had no clue that one of Mary's relatives was causing trouble at her company, I thought. Frankly, Mary, your reputation there isn't great. I've heard you're overly critical of other employees and treat them differently based on their education levels. It's causing significant problems on projects, the executive director revealed, leaving Mary looking as if she might faint. I'll look into this case, and I'll ensure my report against you is thoroughly examined. You might face demotion or even termination, he added. Mary looked like she was about to plead for mercy, but Tom stopped her, saying, Enough, Mary. This wouldn't have happened if you'd been honest from the start. Do something about it, Mary. With a face burning red, Mary turned on Tom. Fine, let's get a divorce then. You're always causing problems, even at such an important event. And now you're affecting work too. I can't be with you after the way you spoke to my mother who worked so hard to raise us, Tom responded calmly as I broke into tears. Ty held me, and Ariana comforted me. Mary, feeling distressed, insisted, I won't accept divorce or demotion. This is ridiculous. The executive director intervened quietly. You need to leave now. I agree. This is an important occasion for us, and my aunt is a significant person. We don't want it spoiled. Please just go, my niece spoke firmly, watching the scene unfold. Mary was in disbelief and left the room, with the employees stunned by the turn of events. Tom apologized to everyone for his wife's behavior, bowing deeply. My niece reassured me, expressing her love and support, while Ariana leaned in to tell me she respected me. Tom also expressed his desire to divorce Mary, saying he'd be happier without her. I was taken aback by Tom's decision to divorce because of me, and I felt guilty, but Tom reassured me, apologizing for everything and promising to be more respectful to his parents. After we all calmed down, we finished the dinner without any further issues. A few months later, Tom and Mary divorced. Mary caused a scene and tried to seek alimony in family court, but her claim was unsuccessful. An internal investigation at her company revealed her problematic behavior, and she was transferred to a smaller branch office in another prefecture, effectively being demoted. Something unexpected happened when Tom announced his decision to take over the restaurant. I had never pressured my children to take over the family business, wanting them to pursue their passions, but deep down, I felt a bit sad at the thought of letting go of the special place my husband and I had built together. Tom approached me with a serious expression, saying, Mom, that restaurant is filled with dads and your love and passion. I initially hesitated to take over because I didn't think I could handle it, so I worked for a restaurant chain instead. But seeing how much your employees love and respect you, I knew I wanted to protect the legacy you and Dad created. I thanked Tom warmly and reminded him that he had much to learn and study. I promised to guide and teach him well as he took on this new role. Tom began working with me at the restaurant, and I found myself busy once again, training him. A year later, on my 63rd birthday, As Tom and I waited outside our house, Tyler's car pulled up. Ariana stepped out, her voice full of joy, as she wished me a happy birthday. Tyler gently lifted their baby from the car seat, joining in the celebration. "Welcome, all three of you," I greeted them warmly, finally getting to experience the joy of being a grandmother to my precious grandchildren. "It's time for me to fully commit to running the restaurant, and I look forward to serving delicious food for my niece's celebrations," Tom declared, his eyes shining with determination after his diligent training. As we celebrate today, I secretly wish for Tom to find someone special now that he's a fully fledged chef, I added, hoping for his happiness and success in both his personal and professional life. My husband has been cheating on me. He's been showering his mistress with designer goods, and what's worse, he's been using my credit card to pay for these extravagant purchases for the sake of our son. I've endured his behavior up until now, but I've reached my breaking point. I can no longer tolerate this. I have to take action. The person who came to my rescue was the last one I expected. My name is Flora, and I'm 35 years old. I've been married to Adam for 10 years, and our beloved son Dominic turned 8 this year. I'm living my dream as a novelist, a career I've always aspired to pursue. My mystery series has a strong following, allowing me to secure several monthly serials. Additionally, my standalone books are also doing well, keeping me busy every day. At the start of our marriage, my husband had a job, but he stopped working as soon as I began earning. For the last 2 or 3 years, he's mostly lounged around the house, occasionally going out to play pachinko. However, today he changed into a suit, which was out of character for him. Something seemed off. Why the suit? I boldly asked him. "Adam, it's unusual to see you in a suit. Where are you going?" I questioned. My husband seemed startled but quickly composed himself. "I'm going to a job interview," he responded. "For what position?" I asked. "Well, it's for a job, obviously." "I thought it was time for me to start working again," he replied. "Good luck," I said, trying to sound supportive. He left the house, and I genuinely believed he was attending a job interview. I thought maybe he was reconsidering his priorities now that our son is still young and our future needed to be secured. However, he didn't return home until 1:00 a.m. I was up late working on a deadline, and when he finally stumbled in, reeking of alcohol and perfume, he passed out on the living room sofa with his smartphone still in his hand. It was unlocked, and out of sheer curiosity, I decided to take a look. What I saw on his phone shocked me. To cut to the chase, my husband was cheating on me, and his affair was with my best friend Dylan. They had gone to a fancy restaurant with a stunning night view that very day. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. It was too much to bear. How could Adam cheat on me with Dylan? Didn't Dylan have her own husband? I trusted them both. The unexpected reality brought tears to my eyes. I knew I shouldn't wake my husband, so I held back my sobs. Evidence. I needed evidence. For now, I sent the proof of the affair to my own phone and decided to think about what to do next. The next morning, I casually asked my husband, who seemed to be behaving as usual, "Hey, Adam, about yesterday." "Yesterday?" he responded, seemingly puzzled. You mentioned you had an interview, but you got home pretty late." I was just curious about what happened. My husband looked away, clearly trying to come up with an excuse. "Actually, I ran into a friend after the interview, and we went out for drinks." "A friend who?" I pressed. "Just some guy, Flora." "Do I need to explain everything?" He replied defensively. "You're right." I conceded, knowing he was hiding the fact that he had met with Dylan. His evasiveness only confirmed his infidelity. 1 month after discovering my husband's affair, I was still grappling with the situation. I hadn't confronted him about the cheating yet, knowing it would create a rift in our relationship. If I were on my own, I would have shown him the evidence of his affair and immediately sought a divorce. However, I couldn't bear to separate him from our son Dominic, who was only 8 years old. Despite his frequent outings, taking advantage of my focus on work, this gave me the perfect opportunity to collect evidence of his infidelity while he was out. I searched his room and found several unfamiliar receipts. It seemed he had been purchasing women's designer items, but there was no sign of them in his room, and he certainly hadn't given me any. There was only one conclusion. Adam had been showering Dylan with luxury goods. But where was he getting the money for that? He's unemployed and living off my allowance. I gave him a monthly allowance, but he likely doesn't have any savings left. Worried, I decided to follow him. During this time, I called my brother over to watch Dominic without telling him about my husband's affair. I said to my brother, "Hey, sorry to bother you out of the blue." "It's no problem, but what's up?" "Why do you suddenly need me to watch Dominic?" he asked. "I just want to go shopping alone." I lied. "Shopping? You've never been one to shop in person. Don't you usually shop online?" he inquired. "Normally, yes, but today I want to buy something that's only available in store." "Can you watch Dominic for me?" I requested. "All right, but don't be gone too long. Dominic gets lonely," my brother agreed. "Thank you," I said, relieved. With my brother's help, I was able to set my plan in motion. I watched my husband walking arm in arm with my best friend Dylan. I knew it was happening, but seeing it with my own eyes was a painful shock. They were cheerfully entering a high-end designer store. Then I witnessed something outrageous. "Is that my credit card?" My husband was using my secondary credit card to pay the bill. I always kept my main card safely in my wallet, while the secondary card was left unattended in a drawer. My husband took the secondary card without my knowledge and used it to fund gifts for his mistress. Over the past few months, I've been making large purchases for work, such as monitors, keyboards, and even new furniture, causing the balance on the credit card to skyrocket. Both cards were linked to the same bank account, and with my busy schedule, I hadn't reviewed the details closely. This negligence came back to haunt me. Not only was he cheating on me, but he was also using my money freely. Any lingering affection I had for my husband had completely evaporated. Although I was partly to blame for not noticing sooner, I couldn't bring myself to forgive him. I took clear photos of the two of them together and went home simmering with anger. For the next few days, I focused on plotting my revenge. I repeatedly checked his usual computer when he wasn't around, knowing he sensed his phone and computer, allowing me easy access to his communications with Duffy. Soon I discovered that the two of them were planning a trip to Okinawa during the upcoming long weekend. A 4-day, 3-night getaway. This was my chance. I planned to execute my revenge during my husband's affair trip. But one obstacle remained: my son. Carrying out my plan without my son discovering his father's infidelity would be challenging. I decided to turn to my brother for help once more. "Hey bro, sorry to bother you again, but could you watch Dominic for me during the upcoming long weekend?" "All 4 days?" I asked, sounding taken aback. "I have something important to take care of." His question made me uneasy. Before I could respond, he spoke firmly. "Flora, stop trying to handle everything alone. Adam's cheating on you, isn't he?" I was taken aback. "How did you know?" I asked. "I heard it from Dominic," he said. "Dominic," I repeated in surprise. Even though my son was young, he had picked up on his father's infidelity. I don't know if he fully understood what was happening, but he sensed his father growing close to someone other than me, and it was causing me pain. Dominic, in his innocent way, had observed the situation. "I thought I was shielding Dominic from this," I murmured. "It seems Adam's actions have affected you so deeply that even Dominic could sense it. Are you still considering staying with someone like that?" My brother asked. "But if I divorce Adam, Dominic will be upset," I started to say. "Mom, it's okay." "I'm on your side," Dominic interjected, surprising me with his resolute words. "I don't want someone who makes Mom sad." "As long as I have you, I'm okay," he said. "Thank you, Dominic, and thank you too, Bro," I said, grateful for their support. With the help of my son and brother, I made up my mind to take action against my husband without any hesitation. We began moving to a new home on the day my husband was set to leave for his trip with his mistress. My brother helped us, and we discreetly packed our belongings whenever my husband was away. The night before the long weekend, I decided to confront my husband and give him one last chance. He was visibly excited about his trip the next day, and I went straight to the point. "Adam, what's with the suitcase? Why are you packing?" I questioned. "Oh, this. I'm going on a trip with a friend starting tomorrow," he replied. "A trip? Did you mention anything about that? It's a last-minute decision, isn't it? You're using the allowance I give you," I pressed. My husband seemed annoyed and tried to brush off my questions. "Don't talk to me about it anymore, Flora." "I couldn't care less about your excuses," he retorted. I lowered my voice as I asked, "Are you really going on this trip with a friend?" My husband flinched at my tone, his shoulders tensing, but he still attempted to lie. "Of course. You've been nagging me a lot." "I see a trip with a friend." "Have a good time," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "I could be fun regardless of whether you told me to be. Just don't overdo it," I said as I left my husband's room. To be honest, if he had come clean with me, then I was considering settling matters amicably, requesting alimony and child support despite his infidelity. After all, there was a time when I loved him. When my novels weren't selling well, he supported me and kept me going. I didn't want to harbor hatred or resentment toward him. However, after everything he's done, I can't afford to remain calm for the sake of my son and my future. I need to end my relationship with him. There's no point in holding back any longer for a man who continually lies. The following morning, my husband had already left for his trip. I opened the drawer and confirmed that he had taken my credit card as usual. I immediately contacted the credit card company, reported the card as lost, and requested an immediate block on its use. My son woke up, and I greeted him. "Good morning," I said. He responded with a beaming smile. "Mom, today's the day, right?" he asked. "We're moving to our new home today, right?" he said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Exactly, Dominic. I've canceled the credit card. Now it's time to move." "Yeah, I'm excited for our new home," I said. Thanks to my brother's help, the move went smoothly. My son and I settled into our new home while my husband's belongings were sent to a designated location. The next day, we were all relaxing at the new house with my son and brother when I got a call from my husband. "Hello, Flora. Is that you? Could you transfer me some money? I spent more than I planned, and now I need some extra cash," he said. He likely couldn't use the card since I have frozen it, so he was asking me for money without directly mentioning the card. His request disgusted me. "Didn't you say you were going to stick to your allowance?" I asked. "Come on, don't say that. I can't enjoy my trip alone if you do that," he whined. "Alone? Don't you mean with Delphin?" I shot back. My husband seemed taken aback. "What are you talking about? Who's Delphin? What's going on with the card?" "It's pointless to play dumb. You're all over the place. Your lies aren't working," I snapped. It's clear you've been cheating on me with my best friend Dylan. Did you really think you wouldn't get caught? This is what it looks like. It's not cheating. He tried to justify himself. My anger flared at his attempts to make excuses, oblivious to the presence of my brother and son. I didn't hold back, letting my fury loose on him. I had been holding in my anger for too long. Stop making excuses. You have a family. You chose to have an affair with another woman and misuse someone else's credit card. Do you realize how low you've sunk, Flora? Let's calm down, my husband tried to say. Calm down. How can I stay calm when I'm talking to the person I despise most in the world? Let me make this clear. I have no intention of forgiving you or offering any help. You and the woman you cheated with can go straight to hell. Don't you dare show your face in front of me or Dominic ever again. I hung up the phone abruptly, cutting him off. Shortly after, Dylan, the woman he cheated with, called me. Flora, what are you doing? She demanded. Dylan, long time no see. How's your trip with your best friend's husband going? I retorted. Shut up. Explain yourself. What are you talking about? She replied. Don't play dumb. You sent Adam's belongings to my house, didn't you? Yes, during our move, I had shipped my husband's things to Dylan's house, knowing she was the one he had the affair with. Since Dylan was married, her husband was naturally at home. I had done it on purpose, sending all of Adam's belongings to her husband along with a detailed letter explaining the situation. I shouted at Dylan over the phone, nearly breaking the speaker. Are you serious? My husband found out, and isn't that expected? You're having an affair even though you're married. My supposed best friend did such a disgraceful thing. You're the worst. I'm incredibly disappointed in you, she responded, taken aback. I think that's my line, I retorted. You were the one having an affair with my husband. Do you think I'll forgive you for that? Who showed disrespect first, Flora? I wasn't serious. It was just a fling. There's no way I'd settle for a jobless loser like him, she tried to justify herself. Whether you were serious or not doesn't matter to me. I'm divorcing him soon. Your affair is a fact, and I won't forgive you. I'll be demanding the maximum compensation from you, so be ready. Compensation? What? I didn't agree to that. Why should I pay compensation? She protested. It's natural. You did something that warrants it. Wait a minute, Flora, please. She started to plead, but I cut her off. Goodbye. I hung up on her and blocked her contact. I finalized my divorce through a lawyer and demanded compensation from both my ex-husband and Dylan. I claimed child support and the money he had spent on my credit card without my consent. Dylan, saddled with debt from the compensation payments, was served divorce papers by her husband and reportedly kicked out of their home. She tried relying on her family but was turned away. As a result, she's now working night shifts and struggling to make ends meet. My ex-husband attempted to lean on Dylan, but she blamed him for causing her divorce. Their relationship quickly disintegrated, and they went their separate ways. As for my ex-husband, he's now juggling several part-time jobs just to get by day to day. Having been unemployed for so long, finding a stable job won't be easy. If he ever falls behind on compensation or child support payments, I won't hesitate to take action to collect what's owed. Meanwhile, my son and I are thriving in our new home. He's growing up fast, and each day is full of new experiences. I aim to continue showering him with love and shielding him from any sadness.
Listen, you need to move out. We decided to stay in his house. What? It's too crowded for us, newly married couple, to have everyone here. And this isn't even your house. If you don't like it, find your home place. Sophie can stay here if she wants. Kicking her out is unfair. My mom's words made me feel relieved. But my brother and his wife were still unhappy. This happened 5 years ago when my younger brother, right out of college, brought his girlfriend home and said he wanted to marry her. My name is Sophie, I'm 33 now, and my brother, who's 5 years younger, got married right after college. His wife was still in college, 3 years behind him. My brother and his wife really wanted to tie the knot right away, but our parents suggested waiting until she finished college. Oddly enough, her parents didn't mind either way. It seems like she's a carefree spender, and her folks just want her out of the house as soon as possible. We'll cover her tuition today, but after that, she's your responsibility. So anything other than her education isn't our concern, they said casually. Not wanting to bother with rent, the newlyweds chose to stay with our parents. Thankfully, our dad, who used to be well off, owned a spacious old house with enough space. It wasn't a big deal for them to live together. My dad grew up in a wealthy family, so he never faced money troubles like a regular worker. He hardly shared his thoughts, always wearing a smile and seeming a bit out of touch with reality. Mom often guided him, but I never saw him lose his temper. "I got a talking to from your mom again," he'd say with a chuckle. Dad was easygoing, taking everything in stride, which is probably why he and Mom got along so well. I adore Dad. He just laughed along when Mom scolded him. And so began the living arrangement with the newly married couple. My sister-in-law doesn't lift a finger around the house. She doesn't even bother with the vacuum or sorting her laundry from ours. Cooking, forget about it. She waits for Mom or me to make meals. You could pitch in a bit, you know. I finally snapped, only to be accused of picking on her. "You're intimidating, sis. Maybe that's why you're still single at your age," she quipped, giggling. My brother just joined in her laughter. "At least do your own laundry. Isn't it embarrassing to have someone else wash your underwear, sis?" I thought we were all one big happy family. She'd fake tears for sympathy. My brother always took her side in moments like these. "Sophie, just because Emily is young and cute, don't get jealous and bully her. We're not here to be your servants. Living together means following some rules. Emily's a student. Her main focus should be on her studies. We're family, so we should be able to cooperate, right?" He said this without any hint of remorse. Even though Mom suggested they get their own place and help us with rent, he brushed it off. "If we move out, it has to be a fancy apartment. We can't settle for something cheap," such selfishness. When I asked Dad to intervene, all he'd say is, "It's tough for just the two of them to manage. They're still young." And because of that, my brother and his wife felt even bolder. When I hit 30, I got engaged, and it was a stroke of luck. My future husband was a client from work, and we hit it off during meetings. He was thoughtful and kind, so when he asked me out and then proposed, I was over the moon. Finally tying the knot, huh? Surprised someone would want you. "Better make sure you don't mess it up," my brother remarked. "Glad you found a buyer. Can't wait for the busybody sister-in-law to be out of our hair," my parents chimed in, blessing our union wholeheartedly. I visit my parents occasionally, but my brother and his wife hadn't changed. She graduated the next year but didn't work or help around the house. When I tried to advise her, I was told I was a stranger now and shouldn't meddle. But I had a feeling they weren't leaving because they wanted to keep hold of the family assets. Deep down, they were probably relieved they didn't have to share them with me now that I was married and gone. However, leaving doesn't mean I forfeited my rights to inherit. My brother and his wife probably understand this, but now that I'm not around, they might feel they can do as they please. When the time comes, I'd gladly give up my inheritance if they take good care of our parents and the house. But for now, I don't see any signs of that happening. About 2 years later, my father's health deteriorated, and he was in and out of the hospital. I pitched in with his care, visiting him as often as I could, but my brother and his wife seemed unconcerned. My father started mentioning his $20 million inheritance, and every time I visited, I noticed my sister-in-law sweet-talking on my father's side, saying, "Hey sis, I'd love to help out too, but Mom handles everything, and I never get the chance." "But you never showed interest in that before, did you?" "That's not entirely true, But don't you think Mom might be trying to keep us out of the loop to control the inheritance? Our parents are really close, and I think Mom wants to handle everything herself. I don't think she's thinking about it that way, really. So you believe we'll get a fair share when Dad passes? Stop it! Don't talk about such unlucky things. Dad's still with us. I'm really frustrated with my brother and his wife, who seem to only care about money, but it's unclear if my father actually has that much wealth. While her family used to be well off, my father is just a regular salaryman. I can't imagine he has that much saved up. A year later, my father passed away. I hurried to the hospital as soon as I heard his condition had worsened suddenly, but when I arrived, he was already gone. The only solace was seeing how peaceful his face looked. You're smiling, right, Dad? You were carefree till the very end. My husband left work early to join me, but my brother and his wife didn't show up at the hospital. When I reached out to my brother, he calmly responded, "If he's already gone, what's the point of rushing there?" My brother and his wife didn't seem to be grieving. At the funeral, they were laughing and chatting. Right after the funeral, my brother wasted no time bringing up the topic of inheritance. As a couple, we'll inherit the $20 million from Dad. What do you mean? Did both you and Mom give up your shares? Can we discuss this after the 49th day memorial? The funeral just happened today. Normally, it's better to settle financial matters later. We live in this house as a couple, and I'm the eldest son, so the inheritance is rightfully ours. Bringing this up right after Dad's passing didn't sit well with me. I didn't particularly care about the money, but it angered me that my brother assumed I'd agree with him. Fine, but in return, you better take good care of Mom. Who would believe such words? My mother spoke before I could object. It's fine, dear. Arguing about this won't do any good, especially now. But Dad had just passed, and Mom was clearly feeling down. I couldn't just let it slide. This isn't something to decide right now. Let's head home for today. My husband, who had been quietly listening, intervened. I held back until now, but my husband couldn't stand it any longer. That's when we decided to leave. It doesn't feel right, especially after Dad's passing. I understand your feelings, but right now I'm more worried about your mom. She's usually so strong, but she seems really down. I'm really worried about her too. I couldn't help but wonder why Mom agreed with my brother's stance so easily. Was she swayed by him and his wife? Mom and Dad were always a strong couple. Losing Dad must have hit her hard. Honestly, I'd rather be reminiscing about Dad right now, but my anger towards my brother is clouding everything. Since then, my brother and his wife kept bringing up renouncing the inheritance, but I refused to discuss it until after the 49th day. When the time came, they wasted no time bringing it up again. But once more, Mom urged me to give it up. If Mom says it's okay, then it must be okay, right? Are you sure about this? Won't you regret it later on? After all, Emily is Dad's daughter, so don't worry. Well, yeah, she's your wife. That's not what I meant. I meant she has a right to inherit. At this point, Emily's practically been adopted by her parents. I was stunned when I glanced at Mom. She simply nodded. Adoption by in-laws isn't exactly unheard of, Ray. It's not common for a bride to be adopted, especially not a son-in-law. If Emily inherits, we'll pay less in inheritance tax than if I were the sole heir. I was shocked that he had thought about it so deeply, wondering when he started planning this. Even more surprising was that Mom agreed. And then they asked me to renounce the inheritance. Maybe Mom, being a mother now that Dad's gone, was worried about the future. But if it's Mom's decision, I suppose I can't argue. So I decided to send in the inheritance renunciation document. I don't want to argue about money anymore. Luckily, my husband isn't one to fuss over it, and he trusts me to make the decision about the inheritance. If renouncing it means Mom can live peacefully from now on, then it's the best choice. About a month later, my sister-in-law called me. It looks like your mom is losing her memory. What? But she's always been so tidy. The house must be a disaster if she's not cleaning. It was hard to believe my mom, who was usually meticulous about cleanliness, could leave laundry lying around and not bother to clean. And after she's just eaten, she yells at me, "I'm hungry. Are you trying to starve me?" Can you imagine? And I'm the one cooking for her. She's turned into a completely different person. Is it true? Have you taken her to the hospital? It seems unbelievable. She gets aggressive when I try to get her out, and it's embarrassing to be seen with her in public. Sam thinks I should just let her be, but I'm the one dealing with her all day, and I'm at my wit's end. Honestly, I'm tired of it. So I decided to stop by my parents' house on my way home from work. I was speechless at the sight of my mother, who looked unrecognizable. She was sitting on her bed in dirty pajamas, hair unkempt, with vacant eyes. It's only been a month, but she's changed so much. It's clear she's not herself. "Mom, you know who I am, right? What's happened to you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Who are you?" my mother asked, tilting her head. "This can't be real. I mean, look at her. She should be sitting right. What's happening? And the room is a mess. How did it get this bad?" "Well, I don't know about all that, but you guys promised to look after Mom, didn't you? Taking care of an elderly woman isn't part of the agreement," my brother retorted. "There's no written contract when it comes to caring for parents." "What are you talking about?" I replied. "In that case, dear sister-in-law, it's your turn to take care of her," my brother stated firmly. I was going to do that without being asked. "Let's go home, Mom," I said, attempting to lead her, but she stubbornly resisted, refusing to budge from the bed. "What's happened to you, Mom?" I had no choice but to back off. Even when my husband and I returned the next day to fetch her, she still adamantly refused to move. "I want to be with your father," she cried. It was hard to believe my mother had become like this. "I have a job and can't visit her every day. That's why I want her to come to my house," but she refused to leave her old home. Sometime later, I received a call from my younger brother. "Sis, we've moved." "Really? Where to?" "Did you take Mom with you?" I inquired. "I wouldn't drag around an elderly woman. She's just a burden," Sam replied. "What's wrong with you?" I retorted. "Mom mentioned Dad's valuable securities are in the safe deposit box. If we sell the house, we'll get around $20 million. "What? It'll be a problem if Mom stays in that house forever," Sam continued. "So sis, get Mom out of there as soon as possible. I'm relying on you." "Wait, hold on. What are you saying?" But the line went dead. Despite repeatedly dialing, they didn't pick up. I left work early and rushed to my parents' house to persuade my mother to come to my place. I anticipated her usual resistance, but this time she quietly agreed, which was a relief. It seemed like Mom understood that nobody was staying in that house anymore. She remained silent during the drive home, but when we arrived, she suddenly perked up. "Huh, can I use your bathroom?" she asked and hurried inside. I was perplexed and stood there trying to make sense of it. The mother I just saw was unmistakably the same as before. What in the world is going on? I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. When my mother emerged from the bath, she requested some clothes. I quickly fetched her some of my own, and a fresh set of underwear I bought for her. "Ah, I feel so refreshed," she explained with a bright smile, drying her hair with a towel. "Mom, what's happening?" I asked, just as my husband walked in. Like me, he looked stunned at the sight of my mother. Suddenly, my mother burst into laughter. "That was quite the performance, wasn't it? I used to be in the drama club in high school. They say to deceive the enemy, you must first deceive your allies, and it seems to be true, doesn't it?" So it turned out my mother was feigning senility. But why? I couldn't make sense of any of it. "Just wait and see. That couple will do something worse soon." "By that couple, do you mean Sam and his wife?" "Exactly. That couple's relationship is solely built on money." Then my mother proceeded to fill us in on what had transpired. Both my husband and I were amazed by my mother's cunning. The following week, my brother called furious. "Hey sis, you knew about this and didn't say anything, did you? What's going on? What are you suddenly talking about? There's no inheritance from Dad at all. When I checked the safety deposit box Mom mentioned, there were only loan agreements inside. So remember that $20 million? Well, that's actually a $20 million debt. Did you not bother to check? Typical of you, the only son in our family to inherit all of Dad's debts. Well, technically, that's still part of the inheritance. In the past, Dad, being too trusting, had acted as a guarantor for a friend's business without Mom's knowledge. The business failed, and the friend kept borrowing from Dad until it went bankrupt, leaving behind only the debt. And to make matters worse, the friend disappeared without a trace. It turns out that our family home had been put up as collateral due to the debt incurred back then. This might have even contributed to Dad developing dementia. It was only then that Mom found out about it. Dad kept saying there's a $20 million inheritance. Dad's words led my younger brother to mistakenly believe there was a hefty cash inheritance. So he and his wife decided to move in with our parents to seize as much money as possible. Dad, without suspecting anything, agreed to my brother's plan. But Mom saw through my brother's scheme and chose not to object. She knew he was so eager for the inheritance that she could simply hand it over to him to shield Dad's dementia. Mom deliberately kept my brother and his wife away from him. And after Dad's passing, when my brother and his wife finally showed their true intentions, Mom pretended not to notice to observe their reaction. She bided her time for the right moment. Then I'll renounce the inheritance. It's too late for that. Did you know you can only renounce an inheritance within 3 months of learning about it? We're well past that period now, so you two will have to shoulder the debt together. Mom had been waiting for this moment. She feigned senility until the deadline for renouncing the inheritance had passed. My brother's only goal in living with Mom was to extract information about Dad's inheritance. When the time came, Mom casually mentioned the safety deposit box as if it had just occurred to her. With the information they needed, my brother and his wife swiftly left the house. All along, they have been playing into Mom's hands. Emily is threatening divorce if she doesn't get any money, but legally she's Dad's child, so she can't escape the debt even with a divorce, right? I see. But I quit my job thinking I could live a life of luxury with $20 million, but I don't have that kind of money. Oh dear, you've really gotten yourself into a mess, haven't you? So, naturally, you'll help me out, right? Why should I help you? You're the one who pushed Mom and me to renounce the inheritance, so I shouldn't be involved anymore. Well, thanks to you, I'm in this mess. I'm sure Dad is crying tears of joy to have such a beautiful son. Good luck paying back the debt. The family home was seized due to the mortgage, leaving the land and house worth nearly $720,000 insufficient to cover the debt. My brother and his wife struggled to make repayments while their marriage suffered under the strain of financial stress. As Mom predicted, they eventually divorced, consumed by constant money disputes. Mom agreed to dissolve the adoption, making Emily a stranger to us. She likely hoped this would absolve her of the debt, but reality is unforgiving. Despite the dissolution, Emily still inherited the debt from her father's passing. You deceived me. My sister-in-law stormed in, her anger palpable. However, we hadn't intended to deceive her. Mom was heartbroken to see my brother and his wife happily calculating money instead of mourning their father's death. She remained silent, overwhelmed by their greed. Their behavior served as a cautionary tale of the consequences of unchecked greed. Afterward, my brother continued to pester us for money, prompting us to relocate without informing him. To my surprise, I discovered that Dad had taken out a substantial life insurance policy with Mom and me as beneficiaries. Despite his passing, he had diligently kept up with the premiums. The fact that my brother wasn't listed as a beneficiary left me questioning whether Dad had been aware of the situation all along. Despite his seemingly carefree demeanor, perhaps the true strategist in our family wasn't Mom, but Dad. He had once asserted there's a $20 million inheritance. Whether intentional or not, I can't say for certain. Now, my husband and I used the insurance payout as a down payment on a new home. Meanwhile, my brother and his ex-wife seemed to be working while dealing with pressure from loan sharks. Their troubles were no longer my concern. Even after our move, my brother persisted in contacting us, demanding to know our whereabouts. That's when I mentioned the insurance money. You renounced the inheritance, so that money should be mine, he shouted. However, inheritance renouncement and life insurance are distinct matters. Unlike inheritance, life insurance payouts go directly to the named beneficiary. I explained this to him and promptly blocked my brother and former sister-in-law's contact details. Now we're enjoying a peaceful life as a family of 3. Mom is thriving, both physically and mentally, the epitome of good health. My husband and I pray that she continues to live a long and fulfilling life.